Basic shapes are a great way to get started when you do your artwork, especially in the beginning stages. Character, it looks very tubular, and there's some spheres, tubes, there are some rectangles. All of that is a great way to begin your art. Howdy, I did a collaboration with Eric Perkins, and I'm doing the line work of a speeder bike with Boba Fett on it, and he is going to do the very cool rendering, which you can see later in this video. As you saw at the beginning of the video, I started out with a simple shape. Now that's very important because that gives me a framework to work with. This way I can get the speeder bike and the character in that general shape. As I was drawing this speeder bike, I didn't realize how many cool details this machine has. I almost ran out of space on the left side of the tip of the speeder bike, so I had to adjust it and make changes to make it all fit in there. And sometimes you have to do that. You have to fudge some things to make things work. Let's take a look at some of the original concept work. Wow, look at this cool design by Nilo Jamaro from ILM. That looks like a Harley Davidson. It's so cool. And now we have another awesome artist named Ralph McQuarrie who created this design. That's also very cool. George Lucas had those two designs merged into one final design, which is the one we see in the movie, and which is the one I'm drawing right now. Doing details can sometimes be tedious, but I actually enjoy doing those little details of the speeder bike, like the handle and all those little knobs and I don't know what you call gadgets and things like that. Maybe there's struts and indentations and cutouts. It was really cool to do that. Really enjoyed it. I can definitely appreciate all the details of this vehicle. Now it's time to talk about the main character, Boba Fett. Let's check him out. Here's a beautiful pen and marker sketch by Ralph McQuarrie. Look how simple it is, and with the shadowing, it's just like spot on, beautiful. And here's another one by another great artist, Joe Johnston. More like a finished version that the one we see in the movies. Very cool. So what I'm trying to do right now is proportions. When you're dealing with humans, you want to get proportions right. Since this is more of a sort of realistic drawing of Boba Fett, it's not anything exaggerated. So I'm trying to get proportions right, and right now I'm working on some of the details of the leg, which I eventually erase. So sometimes I get ahead of myself and I start doing details because details are fun. I can't help it. But later on I end up changing the leg, and that arm also seems too big for right now. If that arm stays the same size, I'd have to make the leg longer and bigger. So I tweaked the arm and made it more facing us, so it looks smaller and it looks better that way. I also searched on the web for Boba Fett, photographic reference of him facing forward, sideways, whatever I could to get his gear, because I want to get his gear right. And this version of Boba Fett is obviously one of the older versions. And notice how Boba Fett is sitting on top of the speeder bike. Many artists, when they draw a character sitting on a horse or a vehicle, they tend to look like they're sliding off. And if you notice, when I was drawing the helmet, I first drew a simple shape, and then I started refining the helmet. And always remember to do simple shapes first. It's just the easiest and fastest way to draw. Here I ended up drawing the hand first, and it's good to do that. This way you can always move the arm, because right now his right arm is too far away from his body, and I knew that. So the original sketch I put on there of his body is a placeholder sketch. I did the back part of the speeder bike for last because I worked my way from left to right. Now I'm doing the final details of the drawing, and I decided to put a little skull there, a la the Punisher, and some lines to show speed that he's moving forward. Time to sign this and call it done. Hang tight, guys. Now we're going to see Eric Perkins do the awesome rendering on this drawing.
Hey everybody, this is Eric Perkins, artist, and I am about to start shading this awesome Boba Fett drawing with the speeder bike created by Juan Ruiz. I begin the process of rendering this drawing with my 2B pencil, going very lightly, laying in some very general light values. After my first pass with the shading, I was not very happy with how dark I was getting the black areas in the helmet, so I went ahead and came back and started touching those up, making them a good bit darker. So I jumped into the helmet of Boba Fett and started bringing the darkness up on that a good bit, shading in the volume and the form, and just generally trying to get that nice roundness in the dome of the helmet, as well as the shadow under the visor, where it has that interesting Mandalorian flare going on. But yeah, so I'm staying pretty light here, trying to just kind of slowly work up the form so I don't overcook it. On the line work that Juan provided, there was a little bit of shading in the small nose cone. I'm not sure exactly what you call it, but that little cone cylinder type thing that's right in the center of the front of the speeder bike. And so I went ahead and just kind of took that shading and used it to determine my light source for the rest of the drawing. So I just decided it would be lit from the top and to the left of the image. So the light hitting Boba Fett's helmet's coming from above and slightly in front of him. And I just kind of used that general lighting throughout the whole bike, trying to decide where shadows would be cast and all that. So I went with a realistic shading on this one, or as realistic as I could make it, based on my experience and observations of light and shadow on mechanical objects and people and whatnot. Now, the lines that I am working on are pretty much lightened from the original drawing that Juan did. Because of that, I had to go through and darken in some of his lines before I shaded areas in. Otherwise, I would lose the lines, lose details, and have to try to recreate what was already there. So it was something to be careful of. There are a lot of really cool details in this speeder bike and in Boba Fett's outfit. So I've tried, as I'm going along here, I'm trying to make sure that I punch up those details as much as I can to make them all kind of stand out and look like they are mechanical, like they belong on this speeder bike. I'm trying to consider the light source and keep pieces dark at the bottom of the bike, while also emphasizing the little linkages, bolts, pinion nuts or cotter keys that hold things together. You know, any little details that I can emphasize to help express that mechanical nature of the bike. Now, as I move forward along the bike, heading out towards the nose, those long pylons that connect the whole thing together, I'm not entirely certain that they're cylindrical, but I did go with cylinders for them, so I added the shading to that, kind of like I actually made them more like chrome. And when I get into those forks at the very front of the speeder bike, I I noticed that Juan had drawn some little dings and whatnot in there, and I decided to kind of emphasize those a little bit, making them somewhat cracked and gritty and grungy looking. And I did some scribble work in there, trying to kind of make it look like those panels had been smashed into things a few times. So, it was a lot of fun working on that little bit of detail in the front of the bike. With the forks done and those panels at the front, I went ahead and did a little bit of quick darkening in, trying to punch up some of the blacks throughout the drawing, and then I darkened in the speed line. I've had a lot of fun collaborating with Juan this month, and on our next drawing, we reverse roles. So I will do the line work, and Juan will do the shading. So I'll let him tell you more about that, but I hope you go check that out too.